Shalom and welcome to Jewels of Judaism. Today I will explain the significance of the Nazarite Vow. This week's Torah portion is found in Numbers 4:21 through the end of Numbers chapter 7. In Numbers chapter 6 we read about the Nazarite Vow. Now the Nazarite Vow had three main requirements. God said that you were not to eat anything from the vine, no grapes, no raisins, not to drink any grape juice or wine or anything alcoholic. That's the first thing. The second thing was not to cut one's hair. And the third requirement was not to touch a dead person. So these are the three requirements for keeping the Nazarite vow. Now, in the Bible, we have four examples of people who were under the Nazarite vow in some way. We have Samson, the judge. We have Samuel, the prophet. We have John, the forerunner of the Messiah, John the Baptist. And then we have Paul, the apostle. So these are the four main examples that we see in the Bible that have some connection to the Nazarite vow. Now, there's someone else who is often considered a Nazarite, but who wasn't, and that is Yeshua himself. We often see Yeshua portrayed with long hair in Hollywood films and in pictures. And that's because they believe that he was a Nazarite. But what evidence do we have in the Bible? It never speaks of Yeshua being a Nazarite, and we see no evidence of that because he drank wine and he did touch a dead person and raised him to life. So there's really no evidence for Yeshua being a Nazarite. He was from the city of Nazareth, which is close in pronunciation, but it's totally different meaning. One thing has nothing to do with the other. So Yeshua was a Nazarite, meaning from the town of Nazareth, but he was not a Nazirite. He was not following the Nazarite vow. So, sorry to burst anyone's bubble, but Yeshua was not a Nazarite, and he probably did not have long hair. He probably had short hair. Now, he might have taken the Nazarite vow for a time, like the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul only took the Nazarite vow for a time, as we see in the book of Acts. So, I'd like to look at the Nazarite vow in the text of this week's Torah portion, Numbers chapter 6, and I want to read just the first two verses. It says this, Numbers 6, verses 1 and 2. Again, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when a man or woman makes a special vow, the vow of a Nazarite, to dedicate himself to the Lord." And then it continues, but I want to stop there. Because we see three important things here. Number one, that the vow was a dedication of oneself to the Lord. Secondly, it was for both men and women. Men and women. There was no discrimination. So either a man or woman could make this vow. And thirdly, it calls it a special vow. Now, this word special here is the Hebrew word pala, which means wonderful. So wonderful or special. And we see this same word, pala, used as one of the names of God in Isaiah 9, verse 6, where it talks about how the Messiah, the child that will be born, would be called Pele Yoetz, which means wonderful counselor. That's the same word that's used here, pala, pele, and it means wonderful. So why is this Nazarite vow? Why is it considered special or wonderful? Well, I think we'll see a couple of things, and I want to mention the first thing is that, the four people I mentioned earlier about those who were under the Nazarite vow. Now, three of them were all born of mothers who were barren. Samuel, Samson, and John the Baptist. All their mothers were barren, and God did a wonderful thing in their life, and he allowed them to become pregnant, and their sons were all to be Nazarites. So I think in the very beginning, at the very start of these three men's lives, we see the wonder of God in the lives of their mothers. And so that's the first thing we see. The second thing is in the corresponding section to this week's Torah portion in the prophets. There's always a prophet section of the Torah portion. And this week's Torah portion, prophets reading, is in the book of Judges, chapter 13, which is the story of Samson. Most of us are familiar with this story, so I don't want to go over all the details again. But just to give you an overview, you have a woman and her husband. Her husband's name is Manoach. We're not giving the woman's name here. However, they were living in the town of Zorah, and the angel of the Lord comes to the woman while she's in the field, and he tells her that she will have a son and that he will be a Nazarite. And he tells her to abstain from certain things and not to shave his head. So the woman goes and tells her husband. The angel of the Lord leaves. And Manoach, the husband, prays to God and asks God to send this man again so that he could know how to raise this boy. God answers his prayer, and the angel of the Lord returns again. Now, Manoach does not understand that this is the angel of the Lord. He thinks it's just a man from God, maybe a prophet. And so the man of God comes again. He says the same things again about how the woman is to abstain from certain things and how the child's head is not to be shaved. He is to be a Nazarite. And then we read in verse 17 of Judges 13. So Judges 13:17, it says, Manoach said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name? So that when your words come to pass, we may honor you." But the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" So again, we see the word pala, wonderful, used here in context of the Nazarite. So when Manoah asks him his name, he says, "Why are you asking my name, seeing it is wonderful?" Now, whether he's saying his name is wonderful or simply it's too wonderful to speak of, we see the same meaning is there. There is wonder, there is something special about this person. And I believe that God is speaking to us through the Nazarite vow, that it is a special vow, it's a wonderful vow, and that God's wonder, the wonder of God, is displayed through the Nazarite vow. Now we see this explained more in this text. So let's continue in verse 19. So Manoah took, I should explain this, that Manoah asked if he could make a meal for the man that he thought was a man. It was the angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord said, "I'm not going to eat your food, but you can make an offering to the Lord." And so that's what Manoach does. He makes an offering of a goat with a grain offering. It says in verse 19, so Manoach took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord. And then it says, and he performed wonders while Manoach and his wife looked on. For it came about, when the flame went up from the altar toward heaven, that the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoach and his wife saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground. So when Manoach made this offering to the Lord of the goat and the grain offering, it says that the angel of the Lord ascended into the fire, into heaven. And it says that he performed wonders, meaning the angel of the Lord performed wonders. And it's the same word here, pala. So it's interesting that the wonder of God was displayed before Manoach and his wife's eyes, and that this child himself would perform wonders as a result of the Nazarite vow, which he would be under all of his life. Samson was used to begin to deliver the Israelites from the Philistines, and he performed wonders as well. So I think we see a very interesting connection here to the Nazarite vow and to the wonders of God. Now, is the Nazarite vow still valid today? I think this is an important question for us to ask, and I think we could obviously say yes. There's no reason to say that we cannot take the Nazarite vow today, especially personally, to dedicate ourselves to the Lord for a time, just like the Apostle Paul did. And it's simply for the purpose of dedicating ourselves to the Lord and to becoming closer to Him. It says in Numbers 6:8 that the person is dedicating himself to the Lord for the sake of holiness. And so we still have that opportunity today to dedicate ourselves to the Lord. And many believers today dedicate themselves to the Lord through a time of fasting and prayer. And I think this is very similar as far as dedicating a time. Maybe it's a meal, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week, where we dedicate ourselves to the Lord. And I think the Nazarite vow is a good opportunity we don't need to totally fast, but to put away anything from the vine, grapes and raisins and wine, to not cut one's hair, and to have a time of dedication to the Lord, and to expect that God will do wonders, and to ask Him to do wonders on this earth for His glory. So I want to challenge you. How can you, in some way, appropriate the Nazarite vow in your life for a time? I want to thank you for watching this video today. I want to invite you to read my full commentary on my website, jewelsofjudaism.com, under the title, The Nazarite Vow, Sharing in the Wonders of God. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.